Hello, and welcome to another week of the DP World Tour Picks and Bets. Skylar, Hoke here, Tom Jacobs. How are we doing, my friend?
Yeah, I'm good. I'm glad the KLM Open is over. Just sour taste in my mouth after that. Like, didn't really have much chance in. Like, it looked like I wasn't gonna have much chance. Then Kiefer and Bradbury all of a sudden had really decent chances. I think it was like, was it 4 or 5 putts inside 13 feet that Bradbury missed on the front nine, like birdie putts as well. Like, he was absolutely smoking it on Saturday. Didn't get as close as he should have done, and then Sunday was just really, really bad. So obviously you felt that pain as well.
Yeah, he's somebody I think we can talk later in the show too, as maybe close to being on the card. Maybe you could get at it because he's playing quite well. The one for me, Vermeijs, right? Dion, almost cashed a 200-1 ticket.
Yeah.
We could have gotten through another triple digit over the line, but I mean, that's kind of why I love maybe the more difficult events, because it feels like I felt dead once Bradbury fell back to the field, and then he comes out of nowhere when he only, he gained 3 shots on the field, and it's like, okay, like he's in the mix after barely making through the cut. And kind of felt the same way like on Brooks the 2 weeks prior. Really, just you maintain, and you get one good round, and it can be a lot of fun. Unbelievable that Pablo basically wins 2 events in a row, right? Like it's, we thought it was a Campillo show. We mentioned that before, and then people were interested again. Campillo, Pablo does it. I think Adrian Otegui had another great week. Like it's a lot of Spanish flair for those two guys. So good for them. I mean, Ryder Cup for Pablo, we said it before, like it is going to be barreling down pretty soon here.
Yeah, like I was going to look at this, and I should have looked at this before we come on here. Like, do you know who the oldest Ryder Cup debutant is? Off the top of your head, like, could you think of someone?
And I feel like the last years, it's just like the same people over.
Genuinely,
who is
just
it?
pretty. No, I don't know. That's what I'm trying to figure out. Like,
yeah.
So I've just looked. So Raymond Floyd was actually the oldest, 51. Okay, so Pablo's not going to be doing that, but like he might be one of the older European, like, he hasn't played one, right? Like, he's definitely not played a Ryder Cup.
Not that I know of, no. So I think he could be very interesting.
He should be on that team now. They can't, like, the trouble with him is he's winning these kind of lower grade events in terms of points and stuff. So he's not necessarily just going to get himself on the team that way. But he's now won 4 times in the last 2 years.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And it comes to stretches too. It's literally 2 in a row, right? After being top 10 PGA Championship in the first round. Like,
and to your point about the Spanish flavor, like 3 of those 4 wins, he's beaten a Spaniard. Arnau, Smith at the My Golf Life Open, Otegui twice, and then Helle Kilde the other time. That's pretty wild.
For sure. I was even watching like ASU play in the NCAA regionals or the finals are happening right now. There was one of the kids with Spanish kid. He had like a great chip from around the green. It's just like those Spanish hands, man. Those boys got it.
It's so easy to put that in now, isn't it? But like he was actually in the field this week. I know he's obviously pulled out since, but he was like 70-1 opening odds. It's just ridiculous. Like, what does this guy have to do to prove his point? But strange.
Hey, good on him. We go at it again. So this week we're getting into a more, I would say, I guess at least a course that we've seen for a consistent amount of time. We get a good run in Germany with the Porsche European Open. And for, I guess, since 2017, we've seen it at Green Eagle. Green Eagle is one of the, I guess I would say, like more interesting tracks to me that we see. It's long, it's demanding, can play difficult, but it's not something you overpower, even with the sense of, not overpower, but like when it played like 7,600, even played 7,800 at one point, like it wasn't something you really won by playing distance. You have to be a really good ball striker, really good with your irons. We've seen Paul Casey beat Bob McIntyre before in the past. We saw, to me, what I thought was the round. I love Guido dearly, but you compare rounds of the year, and I think Data Golf does a good job like this. I think Samoya's final round here last year, from degree of beating the field, might have even been better than Guido's was at the Open of France.
I think it was.
So I mean, that when he, shot -6 to 1. I think he shot the best round of the day by 3 holes. Armitage obviously picked up his first win at the 54-hole event when it was played here. This year is a little bit shorter than we've seen, still over 7,400 yards, playing a par 73. I believe we have 6 par 5s this year, Tom.
Has it changed to
changed
to a 73? Is that a 72?
Changed to a 73. One of the 4s converted to a 5. So I think that, because it used to be 5 par 5s, I think we're going to have 6 par 5s. I can't remember that ever in an event. Kapalua not 6 par 5s. I think it's just the 5, right?
Yeah.
So, because that's a par 73 on the PGA Tour. So, intriguing week. That doesn't necessarily make me like scream and run to the par 5 scores. I think if you're a good ball striker, you're probably a pretty good par 5 scorer. But it speaks to the overall tee to green test that you're going to need to have to succeed this week.
Yeah, and I think like the overriding thing that I think people should take away was the very first point that you kind of highlighted there was the kind of first inclination people are going to have is it's a par 73 with 6 par 5s and it's over 7,400 yards. We need bombers, and you just don't. Like, it's just not that type of course. There's so much water out there that it's so hazardous to you can basically just ruin a score straight away. That effectively you are just playing fairways and greens. So I actually really like the test. I think it's definitely intriguing. We've seen a range of winning scores between kind of 14 under with Casey to 6 under last year. 8 under for Armitage over 54 holes. I guess with Armitage, like, we'll maybe talk about him a little bit later on, but like that was a fun around 65 that he kind of came out of the clouds. Samoa did what he did last week. So I actually think it's one of those events that it's kind of not over until it's over on Sunday. So there's probably quite a lot of in-play opportunities as well. I'd look at maybe tracking people in terms of approach stats on Saturday to see whether they could, fire a low one on Sunday and beat the field with a big tee screen performance.
Yeah, and I wouldn't say our betting cards are like plentiful. Sometimes I'm up to 6, 7 selections. I'm 6 most weeks. I'm just 5 so far going into this week. So I'll keep some tabs, and maybe we would fire a live bet or 2 here as the weekend approaches. The other thing, I can remember this. My first, I think, memory of the course is when Bryson absolutely blew up. Remember that? When I think he shot a Sunday like 78.
Just the Richie McAvoy one. Wouldn't shake his hand, would he?
Yes. Oh, yes. Yeah. Now, what was cool to me when looking back at that, and we do this often, right? This is speaking. Now, again, it's 2018. There has been a lot of events in between, but McAvoy had won the previous week on the Challenge Tour and then came up and won on the DP World Tour, right? Like, again, it's that type of field quality, especially, this week, we're kind of in a run. Bob's back, right? Rasmus Højgaard. Bjork is continuing his good run. Smith is off a couple of missed cuts. Rosner hasn't had a top 20 finish since kind of the restart. We're starting our cards. I'm rubbing off deeply on you, Tom. We're not starting it to 50 plus.
No.
Is there anybody up top that has intrigued you?
So I actually wanted to bet Jordan Smith for the first time in forever, and the ball strike is just bad. Like, these miscuts are not like miscuts, but he's hitting the ball well and putting badly. Like, he's hitting the ball badly as well. So that kind of put me off. Of course, it can come good. If we're talking about just course history, then he's, I guess, probably the one, right? He won in 2017, the first year. He was 11th and 10th the last 2 years as well. Eduardo Molinari's had the 2nd and 5th here, and Kelly Samoa was 18th and 1st. So you've had a couple of specialists, even like Will Besseling 18th and 2nd. But also Schneider 7th and 6th. But to me, I couldn't just focus on the course history aspects. I liked course experience over actual just finishes. I think that you can overcome some poor results here, and just looking at the kind of hidden form that we talk about this week has been a real factor for me. So no, in the end, I wasn't really that close. The biggest decisions was how many of the 50 to 1 shots I was going to look at. So I've only landed on one so far, and I guess we can go straight into it if we like.
Yeah, I think when I'm looking at it, I was just trying to see, Bob intrigued me slightly. Getting I guess it's not even that great of a price discount overall. But what I can remember vividly about that runner-up for him was coming off of a kind of a bad stretch for the first time that year for him, and he really popped back into form. 28 isn't all that bad to when he was 18s, 22s in a couple of weeks. I don't really have the health concerns. He would probably be my bullet if I had to take somebody up there. But no, I'm okay getting the each ways in a little bit deeper down the board. I know Ewan Ferguson is somebody that has been a little bit more popular. He's at 50s. I don't think he's landing on either of our cards, but he's been a popular selection. He finds himself to run in some really hot stretches. Price is a little bit lower than when it came out on Monday. That we're recording on Tuesday now after the holiday. But Tom, where do you land as number one on your card?
I think before I come on to that, like McIntyre is actually really interesting. Like I am very dismissive of McIntyre in general, but 28-1 is getting close to being like really appealing. Like 7th, 6th, and 7th before that kind of injury concerns with the withdrawal at the Italian Open, as we spoke before. Like he played well with his irons that week and had to pull out. The PGA Championship was really damaging from a putting and approach standpoint, but that could just be one bad week. Oak Hill, like many people had those, right? Then when you talk about the second place finish here, is actually the third round that he really faded away. So he was in the lead going into the weekend, shot a 74, still held on to the lead, and then bounced back with 68 to actually finish second. So it wasn't like one of those Sunday jitters. So could be interesting, but
that's where I guess that before you like when you see form at a course and you come into that place out of form completely. I think he had back-to-back missed cuts. I mean, I think it was rookie year. He had a really, really good rookie year. Yeah. I remember in DFS, that was a week where we got some big contests for some reason. And like he was very, very low owned, and getting on him like was a huge upside moment for it. So that was what stuck into my head, as people really were off Bob at the moment and form checks out leading in. So excited for him. 28 is not bad, but now go in.
Are we talking ourselves into this or no? We're still going to leave him.
We just said we're going to leave room for a live ad. We'll see. We'll come back.
Maybe we'll see how he is. Like, let's say, like if he was 37th after round one, he might be the one. Like he might be that live bet that we're talking about.
For sure. That's a really good idea, because I'm trying to.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't want to talk bad about his PGA Championship was, and I was so excited for him there. I thought he actually was going to perform, and it really just was pretty brutal. So I think I'm going to leave it for 28s, but yes, I would be very, very curious on his numbers early on.
Let's talk about people we're definitely going to go into. So my first one is Mike Lorenzo Vera, and he was actually the first person I had in mind before even the KLM Open finished. I just think about kind of strong players off the tee. Lorenzo Vera is one of those. He does it mainly through accuracy, but a little bit of distance there as well, which is what you need. So he's been 5th and 10th his last two starts off the tee, 11th and 16th from tee to green. His iron play is lagging behind, but I'm pretty comfortable that he can kind of sort that out. He's on a run of 4 straight made cuts. He's had 3 top 12 finishes in that time. So when he was 7th in career, he was 3rd at the halfway mark. He finished 4th in Sadao after being 5th going into the final round. And last week he finished 12th, but he wasn't really in the hunt, and then finished for 68, which I really like to see. Again, this is kind of on to my point where course experience maybe over course form, maybe like 19th, 29th, and 40th doesn't seem amazingly good, right? But he opened with a 67 on his debut, or his first start that we can see. He opened with a 67, and then over the last 2 years, 29th in the 54-hole event, he couldn't really ever get going. And then he just had a poor Saturday, or poor Thursday and Saturday last year, but kind of had 71s in between, which is actually pretty good at this golf course, and probably going to be even better when you look at the par 73 this year. So I just think the way he's playing, the way he's striking the ball, the consistency, 3 top 12s is not to be sniffed at in terms of current form. And there's only really like 4 or 5 players ahead of him in terms of form. Perez, Bjork, Campino, I guess Lane Gask is up there, but I think he's probably one of the better values this year.
Yeah, I mean, I think he popped on the radar. We talked about him a good bit this fall, and kind of leading into some of those flashes he showed. I mean, that, again, incoming form, T40 last year, but like nothing prior. Baroff was very, very high on MLB last week and into this week. And it's not that I'm scared, again, by the overpowering of the course. That's kind of like the only fear in some way. But could totally understand MLB kind of being a leadoff selection.
I think when you think about it as well, like you've spoken about Paul Casey, Bryson, and others already. And these players aren't here. Like, we know why they're not here, but they're not here. So like the field.
I mean, Reed used to always be here too, right? Like there was big time players that would come. Yeah,
so like I think he's the type of person, we talked about this, like people that are going to benefit from these weaker fields. I talked about it with Kiefer last week. Like he's gonna relish this. So whilst I respect kind of Højgaard and Perez and Smith and people like that, like I really do think that Lorenzo Vera is going to look around, and he's still never won on the DP World Tour, which is ridiculous.
Yeah, 100%. No, I'm excited for him. I'm landing at 70s for my first selection here, and I'm going to go with the reigning champ. I like Callie Samoya quite a bit this
I do.
If you look really just kind of again, and it's more of he's not somebody I really think runs for him or run it's a hard to predict individual overall for me over the years, right? I mean, it's spike weeks hidden in. It is something where his win, last year's previous events prior to that were miscut, T38, T5, then basically 4 more miscuts and a T12. He is not someone to bring in the form, but his tee to green display. I mean, he won that event losing strokes putting last year, right? It was an unbelievable ball striking, and he flashed that same type of upside in a couple of rounds at the Italian Open, and then he comes back and delivers at the KLM. Levy led the field in greens and regulation last week with really, really good approach numbers. Kind of put that together, and then you're getting him at 70-1. To me, I love that, just knowing that he can absolutely spike at any time and has some good familiarity. I believe it was an 18th as well as other previous finish in this event. So some good vibes overall coming back as a defending champ.
He was brutal for a long time after that win here last year, right? The really struggled. His irons were so bad, and to your point, he's very difficult to predict. But that's why you get a decent number like that. That's a great thing to see. He led, C-screen stats here last year, like you said, second in approach. He was third around the greens. It was just a really, really strong performance all around. It was only his putting where he was absolutely ridiculous.
He could have blitzed the field, right? He could have blitzed the field.
He could have been ridiculous, and he hit 72% of his greens. He was second in that statistic behind Dan Heising. So, really, really impressive. And I didn't actually know that he led the greens and regulation stats last week, so I think that's an even bigger bonus. I don't know really what you say bad about him. He's actually a really decent price considering we're talking about the person that's won it. He hit over 85% of his greens last week. That's ridiculous.
Right, that's number one in the field, right?
And I guess the only concern with that is that he got worse as the week went on from that department. But because he hit 88% in his first round, 94% in his second round, but then even then he was still hitting 72% and 66% over the weekend. That was just bad for him. So, this is a really good bet, I think.
Yeah, I'm really excited for him, especially the number. The number isn't really going down. I think Paul Williams is on him too, and we're seeing 70s to 80s across the board.
It's just one of those classic things that people don't believe that Callie Samoya can go back to back, and it's going to be the same for all of my people I'm going to talk about in a minute. People don't think people win events twice because they're not people that win generally. So, I like it
for sure. All right, so I am there. Let me see what the price is going to be, me or you next again. I think I can roll one more time here because yours should be 80. Yep. Okay. There's even a 90 out there. Okay. So I'm going to go next with Maddie Schmidt. It feels almost too good in that sense to coming over on the PGA Tour. Do you think Schmid? We had this conversation about who was it? Paul Barjan.
Yeah.
I think Schmid is a better talent than Barjan. Is shown more upside. And then he had that fourth when he popped over the DP World Tour in December after basically a stretch run similar on the PGA Tour. Right? He was 59th, cut 61st, cut. Comes over, finishes fourth at the South African Open Championship, and then nothing. I guess he had one top 10 on the PGA Tour, but nothing. And then last week at the KLM, he was a really, really good ball striker. I think he was top 5 in distance, top 5 in greens and regulation. He just feels like the type of golfer I would want to attack this type of course with if I was to make it. And you're getting somebody who obviously has a PGA Tour career, who's a really good college player. And you're still getting the prices. You're still getting some really, really good prices. 75-1 for Schmid to me after a great tune-up, and then to head here, I think it makes a ton of sense for him.
So I think because I looked at Schmid for all the reasons you said, and the fact that we had talked about the PGA Tour drop-off, and I was interested in last week just because I wanted to see, because they weren't massively bad miscuts, and it's hard to kind of find your footing in the PGA Tour, what he was going to do with the kind of reduced field and things like that. And to the opposite to that point is how well is Ryan Fox playing right now on the PGA Tour, and they're consistently like 20th finishes, 26th or whatever. And I think if he was playing like that, he'd still be dominating this tour like he was last season. And when I look at Schmid, the only concern I had with him was like, is he the type that we talked about at the start that people will target because he's the longer hitter, and then could he get himself in the trouble that we talked about? So that would be my only concern. But he was 34th last year, and his final round kind of held him back. He was 17th going into Sunday. So I think if he can rein it in and play it strategically, he could be really good.
I mean, he should have won the PGA Tour event last year. Like,
yeah.
I'm actually still disappointed in that final round at the Barbasol and where he went to college. Hopefully, he gets another spot into that. Man, that was a juicy bet we had leading into the weekend. But I mean, he's shown upside. I think he was like a really, really good amateur, right? And so I don't know. Those prices, I'm more than happy to go in. Yes, your next one is 90. I got another one here, Tom, before you, right? Because then it's...
what price is Kiradech?
Oh, go ahead. You go. Yes.
Yeah. So Kiradech Cafe Barmrat is, I think, a player who I do think we can kind of follow a bit of form in what he's been doing.
80s, yep.
Yeah, 80-1 for Kiradech Cafe Barmrat. So on top of what he's done here, he's been 4th and 6th in the BMW International Open. We haven't had a chance really in recent weeks. We talked about it a few times last season with location form and playing right, playing well in certain parts of the world, and Germany is where we are. So although he's only finished 37th and 34th here, I was encouraged by his 4th and 6th in Munich at the BMW International Open. And also, when you look further into his debut here in 2017, he was actually 4th going into the weekend. And I would argue that he's a better golfer than he was back in 2017. 15th and 5th place finishes in his past 2 starts. He's actually briefly in the mix, I think, Sky, on Sunday. Like, I'm pretty sure he tied the lead at one point. Like, he was never going to win it. Oh, he
did.
But like 100%. He was tied because people were just coming back to the field, to your point earlier. And I think he could really win. I mean, I know he's done a lot of his damage close to home, and that's probably expected of someone of his, I don't know, talent. It's not talent with Cafe Barmrat. Like, it's definitely comfortability. Like, he's spoken about the fact that like he was very lonely on the PGA Tour, and wasn't so much when he was on the DP World Tour. And I just think that when he settles, he's really good. And this is a guy that's won 4 times. He's beaten Molinari, Hao Tong Lee, Robert Carlson. Like, he's very, very good. So just the fact he's flashing those things over the last couple of weeks suggests to me that we've got someone that's trending into form. So it's not a massive numbers thing in terms of ball striking, things like that. It's just more of a, what is Cafe Barmrat, who he is, can he win? And he is hitting his approaches. A couple of starts ago, was 6th in the field, and tees green, he's strong enough. So I like it.
Yeah, I think it's almost, I wouldn't say those are popular. I mean, it makes sense where it's landing there, and it has been selected by other people. I've seen it. It's almost, I maybe am course fitting a little bit too much, or putting that into equation to make tiebreakers, because I feel MLV and Cafe Barmrat very similar approaching this week as, right?
Yeah.
Their game isn't ultimately built up on ball striking. It's more of a short game that they have, but the form you can't knock. And with these type of events, you just show up and you play. They can definitely find their way.
And like his tees green numbers, like 10th and 8th for the past 2 starts, are impressive enough. So like,
yes,
I think he's a type like we see with like Wentworth when he should have won. Like, he can just blast one wildly off the tee, and that can end up in the water and damage himself. But he's just such a good player, and I really enjoy seeing him in the mix. And that's when you get someone like that 80-1 and in form. I like it.
Yeah, 100%. Okay, come over to me. And if we weren't recording a day late, I would just say, just chop up what I said last week, and then we can re-input it here, because Adrian Arnaus withdrew last week. So probably saved ourselves some money, but don't get me wrong, when you double it up this week.
We're just going to do it again.
100%. So I don't think any differently of it. Like, literally the exact same selection. I liked Adrian Arnaus this week, based off the fact that his second round at the PGA Championship was incredibly strong. He was the only person to birdie hole 6 and 7 to close in when he just was 1 off the number. He missed a final birdie putt at 9. He just held his own, even par on that last day against the world's best, when he's coming in with some pitiful form. I think says maybe he's turning a corner. 16th here last year. And this is the type of event that I would draw up for Audrey, right? He was 69 on the start end, 69 to close out the week, right? So it's probably a good time. What was he after the first?
Fourth after round 1 last year
Yeah.
and finished 16th. So
yeah, and he had a 76-74 that he sandwiched between those. So that's where, to me, like, okay, then you're showing up to this, and this is a type of course. If you can be long and straight and then good with your irons, obviously it plays anywhere, but that really, really plays here, the Paul Casey style of golf. Adrian has that in his bag of tricks. So you're getting a deeper price than we did even last week, 80-1. Same apply for me.
Yeah, and I think, like, back to our earlier points, like we said, don't get too caught up in the driving distance because accuracy is so important this week. And I've gone with kind of Lorenzo Vera and that sort of in that kind of mold, and you've gone with Schmid and Arnaus in terms of a bit more distance. But you do have to have, like, it is advantageous as long as you can keep it in the fairway. Like you say, it's very obvious, but like if you can be long and straight, then that is important. And I think what Adrian Arnaus did here last year is just the epitome of Adrian Arnaus, right? Like 69, 76, 74, 69. Like 69 on those 2 days are probably the two best or two of the better scores of the week. And then the middle rounds were just probably him getting himself into trouble in water. I haven't looked, but I imagine that's probably what happened. So look, he's got the skill set to do it. I think all the time you can get Adrian Arnaus in these kind of 80 to 100-1 ranges is when you want to bet him, because when he's 28-1, 33-1 and obvious, it never works out. So take him while you can, I think.
Absolutely. So I'm excited for him. Like I said, I was very excited last week for that. And I don't really find myself to be on Audrey all that much. So I think there's a lot of upside there. All right. 80s. I'm triple digits the next two. Tom, you should have another one here landed at 90-1.
Yeah, Marcus Armitage for me. I spoke about earlier that people don't believe that people can pick up 2 wins at a tournament. And I think that applies to Kelly Samora and it applies to Marcus Armitage, right? And he won that 54-hole renewal after shooting that final around 65, and the question was very much going to be, can he do it over 4 days? And he hasn't again so far. But when he came back here in his title defence last year, he opened the round of 70, and he was 11th after round 1, and then he shot a 73, and that still kept him in 8th place going into the weekend. And it was actually just a really poor weekend that saw him fall away. But now you look at the current form again, 9th, 28th, and 29th for the past 3 starts. And even those final results, I don't think, tell the whole story. So when he was 28th in Belgium at the Sadao Open, he was 12th going into the weekend. And when he was 29th last week in Holland, he was 4th after Friday's round. So he's been in position a couple of times. He's been in position here twice, winning once and being right there over the weekend. And now his irons are really flashing. 3rd, 47th, 8th, and 3rd, the last 4 starts for strokes gained approach. His driver is concerning. So, like, that's why he's 90-1, is that he's not hitting it particularly straight or massively long. Like, he's not cantering out the other one. So I just feel with driving, and I'm sure you're probably the same. Like, if you come back to a golf course that you've got great memories of, sometimes you can just channel that driver and just, you're familiar with the fairways, the shapings, how to avoid the water, and you've done it before. I think he can come back. And Marcus Armitage, you don't generally associate poor ball striking with. So I think that driver can come good at the right time and give him a shot to win here.
I mean, there's nobody more fun to root for than the Bullet. Like it is very just an experience. And I mean, I think it's still like hidden form coming in, right? To your point. And he finds that accuracy a little bit more, and totally. I mean, he's somebody I almost thought almost got on Southgate in that same type of game. I
looked at Southgate. Yeah, like you're right. They are very similar. Because I've seen Marcus Armitage do it, I believe in him a little bit more. I guess the point would be, and we say this about majors and things, do you want to be going into a tough layout trying to find a particular point of your game? And the answer is probably not. But like, I just trust Armitage to find a driver at the right time. So I just hope that he can find it. And 90-1, I think, is a fair enough price. He does just fix that part of his game.
Yep, absolutely. All right. So I'll go in back to back here and kind of round out our confirmed selection. So the first one to me, I still think the price is pretty dang good. I know he opened 200s quickly down into the 100 level, but I'm going back to Dion, man. Dion Jeremiah has basically done nothing wrong over the last month of golf, right? I mean, you look at what his form has been, right? He was 3rd last week. He held the lead going into the back 9. I mean, easily. And he started 31st at the first round. He was 15th the event prior. In between that, I'm trying to think of the Sudal Open. He really had a really, really good weekend. He was ninth, I think, 4 events prior to that, or 3 events. But in between those, he qualified for the U.S. Open, right? He was the medalist there, a 36-hole event. To then show up to be triple digits, to me, I mean, you don't get that much form, right? Like, this is his I guess the most encouraging thing to me of that was his best approach game that he's displayed in quite some time. Like, he was finishing well with a bad approach game. Now he has the irons firing. He putts really well. He's been, anytime you got data on him, he has been putting pretty decent. So I just think just the numbers play specifically for that for me. So, I mean, he had won, I think it was on the South African Tour, the Sunshine Tour in the past. Like, I mean, he isn't somebody who's a scared winner. So I think as an amateur too, he was 3 wins in 18. So I think overall, like, I trust him when he gets in the mix. He didn't really melt. He just didn't score on the par 5s. It would have been tough to get Pablo anyway. But, man, you could still cash a big each-way ticket again on him. So I'm really excited for that at 100s.
I think because the quick look on, like, Days of Golf 1 shows the big, like, blanks that we've had in terms of data over the last few weeks. But, like, it was the concern that, like, was the approach play last week an anomaly compared to, you know, because Sadawi lost a lot, Italian Open lost a lot, and Raz Al Khaimri lost even more. And then he's gained in all of those in putting. He lost in the Italian Open as well. Like, is it dependent on a short game? I don't know, because the iron play was good last week. I'm assuming it was pretty good at Walton Heath when he was a medalist. You wouldn't have been able to do that without a good iron play. So if he's just found the irons over the last 2 or 3 weeks, then I think we've got, this is a classic case of we've got a little bit of the unknown with the DP World Tour. Like, if we had the data that his approach, because I was put off because he went from the 200s to 100s really quickly, but the 200s was just wrong. Like, it probably should have been 125 at the most anyway. So if we had data every week that showed he was trending into a really strong approach play week on week, especially with Walton Heath, does that suggest he should have been like 66 to 80 to 1? Like, it's really hard to call, right? So I think the ultimate point from you and me trying to waffle here a little bit is, like, he's a high opportunity player, and that's really important. And if he can find the driver, then great.
Yep, absolutely. So he's the first one. Second one, and I was kicking myself early. I've kicked myself on this guy a couple of times because he's kind of doing the old Nick Backham to me, which is you pop up for a round or two where you don't have a strong finish, right? And that is Alejandro Del Rey. Alejandro Del Rey, we had bet him, I think, at the Sudal Open, which was more a little bit distance heavier. He was 6th after the first round, really struggled the rest of the way out. Italian Open, he sandwiched a couple 68s in between a 76 and 74. And then you look at what he did last week at the KLM, where he was 4th, the halfway point. And in between, again, those 2 events, what did he do? He qualified for the U.S. Open. So Alejandro Del Rey has just been somebody that we know from a distance perspective is probably the longest guy in the field. I mean, it would actually, like, what I think Wilco made the cut at Torrey Pines when he got a start. So I think, like, if it wasn't LACC, I'd be kind of intrigued at Alejandro on just an absolute distance-driven course. I think he drives it as long as anybody. But a 3rd at the Singapore, earlier this year, and he has played once in Germany, Tom, on the Challenge Tour. You know what he did there? Victory.
There you go.
Yep, he did the Big Green Egg this last year. So right after that, he was 5th place. I just think he's trending in the right spots. And again, you're not gonna get somebody who is completely well-rounded at these odds, right?
No.
Like, it's just not going to exist. So to have somebody who can dominate a field in a certain manner, I'm very intrigued that way. So I think at 150s, absolutely worthy of an each way.
Yeah, absolutely agree. I think it's like you say, it's a backhand thing all over. Like, you're backing the high upside player and hoping that the course is going to fit, which you should do. And I don't want people to take away from the fact that they don't back long hitters, because you absolutely should. You just need them to be accurate this week, unlike other weeks where they can overpower it. I think is the resounding point there. So yeah, absolutely like it. I think there is an opportunity to take a couple of bullets. Like, you look at, like, it is a well-respected golf course and it has had strong fields, but we have had some surprise winners. So I think you should take it, and they've been some of our best opportunities this year to win, right? So Bradbury last week and Govanshy, and you already had Backham. It's been some of our best opportunities. So I like going down that route. One player I think I'm probably going to add in, I think he's like 75-1.
Oh yeah.
Julian Brun, like this guy was someone that people, I don't know whether people were chasing him at the start of the year, but people were definitely keen to bet him for a decent period of time. Right, he come off the Challenge Tour and he was winning there, winning on all the other lower levels. He had a really strong iron performance last week at the KLM. Like he was fourth with strokes gained approach. He was terrible off the tee, which is why he finished tied 29th. And that's kind of been the case for a little while with him. Like he lost a massive amount of strokes at the Italian Open, lost at the Sadao Open, but still before that reset, he was in really good form. Seventh at the Kenya Open, 23rd at the STC Championship, 24th at the Workwear, and also they were better than that. Like his seventh was as good as he could have finished in Kenya, but when he was 23rd at the STC, he was second at the halfway mark. When he was 24th at Johnson Workwear, he was fourth at the halfway mark. Even when he was 72nd at the Italian Open, he was top 25 going into the weekend. He was 15th at the Sadao Open, but he was third going into the final day. And then last week, he had that really strong iron play. Then, when you look at the one time that he's played here, he had the opportunity to win. And that, to me, kind of took me to go into him, because I think this is a guy that we know is capable of winning. And, like, should we be like overlooking someone that's been so good because he just can't figure it out for 4 rounds? We've learned in the past, no. So Julian Brun was second going into the final day here last year and a shot of final around 80. Maybe that tells you what he's like in contention, but I don't know. We'll soon figure out. So I think at 75-1, there's an opportunity there with Julian Brun.
Yeah, no, good points. I think he definitely is a popper up in different spots. Me only picking 5 guys. I don't know if I really had that much of a list outside of that. I thought Axelsen showed a lot last week.
Yeah, he did.
12th. Ben Coley almost stole that. That would have been awesome. Yeah, I think he was on him at 500. The place there would have been awesome. You're getting Challenge Tour winner Max Rutliff in the field for the first time. Hugo Coussade is back, right? At a decent price. It's really done not that much wrong. Jaden Schaefer is back. Didn't really play all that well last week. Down the board, I just didn't find Rowan Karen played well enough last week in the eighth. He just hasn't done anything else.
Who is he? Like, I don't know anything about him. Like,
no, he's 30. Like, he's like a journeyman that has like gotten spots. Gumberg qualified for the U.S. Opener, was very close and had 11th and 33rd on the Challenge Tour. Old friend Oscar Langdon is in this field, and he's had a little bit of run of form. The guy that I'm not on, but that once again, this is funny too. I'll say the other guy first. I think Sean Crocker might be getting closer than he's getting credit for. Finally, strung together a couple cuts. Again, this would be a type of spot if I could dream up what he was 11th and 21 here. So if I could dream up a spot for Crocker, this would be it. I just don't know if his game is all the way there yet to pull the trigger. Anybody else
but
you have on the list?
Crocker, right, is the guy that when he does find it one week, he's then going to like at least half in odds. So it's one of those when you
100%.
Interesting you mentioned Langdon, because there's like this massive link with the Foshan Open in China. There's been some crossover there, and he was 7th in 2018. But McIntyre was second that week and has been second here. Sean Crocker was third that week. Van Drill's had good success at both. Blomstrand was 9th in that event in 2019 and finished second here the week that Richard McAvoy won. So there's definitely some crossover. Did
Crocker? Let's stay on Crocker. Man, maybe this could be the time. So did he have anything last week? I guess that was a 54-hole event that he was 11th, 72, 71, 71. What about in the previous times here? Was there any big pops of rounds? I'm going to go over the course form now. I didn't see individual round numbers for the approach. Was there anything last week either?
No, so Crocker's first start here was 33rd. He was actually 16th going into the final day, so he was better there than the final result says. He was, like you say, very consistently 11th, and then 51st last year is fine. So I think he's a good player to make the cut, definitely on DraftKings.
Yeah, what was the most intriguing to me, as you look at it, right, I think it was 17 start time. He was 20 years old with basically no form anywhere, not playing. He might have even been like an amateur at the time when he had played there. So I think, to me, Crocker, he's somebody we followed him religiously through this. I mean, yeah, he was an amateur when he started to make that move over to play these events. So, yeah, I'm intrigued by Crocker. I think I'd rather be early than late. So I'm going to add 250s. I think there's enough flashes for me. I am in there. And anything more on Crocker? Was there any flashes of like irons or anything last week? It was mainly short game, which scares me.
Yeah, he gained slightly on approach and off the tee, but it wasn't like Crocker that we expect. Like he was really good in his approaches at Sunel Open though, so it was just the putting that saw him miss the cut. So maybe he's coming back. He's just been so bad since he won the Hero Open. It felt like he finally won and then just I don't know, he partied or whatever he did. Like I think he likes to have a good time. So I think he's typically a guy that's trying to get back to playing in America. Like he made some starts on the Corn Ferry Tour earlier in the season. So look, this is a guy that we were chasing religiously at like 28 to 40 to 1, and now he's 250 to 1, and he's shown a little bit of life and played well on this golf course. So why wouldn't you?
All right. Card felt too light anyway. So Crocker. All right. Okay. So the only other person I'm going to talk about in the field that I'm ensuring that I wrap myself up here is our boy. His older brother is in the field this week. Did you see this? You got to go way down the odds board. So the older Kabugu brother, the one who made the cut at the Magical Kenya Open, Mathia, is teeing it up. Mathia Kabugo, 24 years old, made a couple Sunshine Tour starts. And we didn't talk about this either, Tom. We just tweeted back and forth about it. We're not far off. Robinson Chinhoy winning on the Sunshine Tour 2 weeks ago. That was our 25. That was the OG 2,500 to 1 bet off the Safari Tour. I mean, the guy can rip off maybe a Sunshine Tour card into a DP World Tour card. I mean,
we get a chance
PGA
to
Tour in 3 years? Yeah. 3 years' time, I think we might get it.
Well, I mean, the access to the top 10 players on the DP World Tour gives you straight onto the PGA Tour now. So the opportunities are endless for someone like Robinson Chinhoy.
Yes, we are getting there. Okay, I'm going to close us on that note. So, Tom, can you review your betting card one more time for me?
Yeah, so for me, it's Mike Lorenzo Vera at 55 to 1, Kiradech Afibara and Julian Brun both at 70 to 1, Marcus Armitage at 90 to 1. For me, I think that's it.
Okay, perfect. Kelly Samoya for me, 70 to 1. Matty Schmid, 75s. Adrian Nas, 80 to 1. Dion Germahis, 100. Alejandro Del Rey, 150 in the ad. Finalizing it out with Sean Crocker, 250 to 1. Love this event. This is a super exciting one for me because it's a really good test of a course. So for that, the U.S. Open is just 2 weeks away. So we got big time Scandinavian mix next week. So exciting time in the DP World Tour. So best of luck to everybody out there. Please feel free. Tweet us. Happy to answer any questions. Again, coming out a little bit later this week. So DFS questions or anything else, more than happy to answer in the interim. So thank you, Tom, as always, my friend.
And to all our listeners out there, audio listeners.
You can find us on all the audio formats. Yes, you're going to be a quick commute, either Tuesday night, Wednesday morning. Find us on Daily Fantasy Sports Picks and Bets. The Mix. We appreciate all the efforts from the Mayo Media Network. The love, rating, review, subscribe. It goes a long way, the comments. So best of luck, everybody, and we'll catch you next week.
Thanks, guys.